It starts with an unthinkable sight: boxy U-Hauls of American machinery inching north across the Ambassador Bridge at dusk, decals flashing under cold Ontario lights while Detroit's skyline recedes in smoky orange. For half a century, money flowed south or east. Tonight, it climbs into snow over a tariff wall that was meant to fence industry in, not invite it out. Those crates, robot arms, payroll servers, stamped loyalty plaques, aren't fleeing danger. They're chasing arithmetic that suddenly favors Canada's calm incentives over Washington's heated rhetoric. Every axle rolling past customs is a silent vote on a trade strategy that promised jobs but delivered toll slips. If tracking those quiet referendums matters to you, tap like and subscribe so these stories stay visible. But as arrows of industry redraw themselves toward the maple leaf, we have to ask, when your factories need passports to stay alive, what does sovereignty really mean? Across that same river, General Motors has already mapped the escape route. When Washington doubled tariffs on foreign battery cells in February, spreadsheets inside GM's Renaissance Center flashed red. Keep BrightDrop's new electric van, line in Michigan, and swallow a 25% cost spike. Or slide the project 130 miles east to Ontario, where the cells arrive duty-free and generous provincial tax credits wait. They chose the night move. Over one snowy weekend in March, precision robots and stamping dies were shrink-wrapped, bolted to flatbeds, and driven across the Blue Water Bridge before dawn traffic. By Monday, lights at Orion Township were dimmed for maintenance, while Ingersoll's Cami plant, once a sleepy crossover factory, hummed with electricians rewiring the floor for vans. Inside the cafeteria, 23-year-old welder Thea Deslauriers told a local reporter she felt like I'm babysitting America's future, only on Canadian soil. Back in Flint, her counterpart Marcus Hayes scrolled job boards on a cracked phone, wondering whether severance would outlast rent. GM's press office insists the shift is temporary optimization, yet internal schedules lock BrightDrop production in Ontario through 2028, long enough for Ottawa's net zero manufacturing credit to pay half the capital costs and for workers to put down mortgages. The irony compounds. Every van built under Canada's roof re-enters the United States tariff-free under USMCA, but each rolls off the line stamped Made in Canada. Recruiters from London, Ontario, email machinists, offering relocation bonuses, healthcare, and wages lifted by a gentler exchange rate. Each yes drains a tax base and mutes another factory whistle. Tariffs drafted to drag supply chains home have instead chartered a daily caravan of value added just across the boundary. And as those silent convoys glide south on I-75, the empty break rooms of Michigan pose a blunt question. Did protectionism just outsource the future, mile by mile? Beyond the auto exodus, molten metal is telling its own migration story. At Alcoa's Warwick smelter in Indiana, the night shift used to sound like rolling thunder, pots hissing, cranes clanging, molten aluminum roaring into casting pits. But the soundtrack changed on June 4th, the moment Washington layered a fresh 50% duty on unfair Canadian ingots. Instead of celebration, Warwick's control room lights dimmed. Management announced a cold idling process to conserve cash. The surprise came 3 hours later, when internal logistics orders flagged a surge of alumina rail cars bound for Quebec's Baie-Comeau complex. 2,000 miles north, across a border the tariff was supposed to harden. Baie-Comeau's advantage is pure physics and policy. Hydroelectricity at half the Midwest's price, and Ottawa's carbon credit rebate that pays a dividend on every low-emission billet. By week's end, Quebec recruitment ads promised signing bonuses to U.S. pot room veterans willing to swap soybean fields for spruce forests. One of them, furnace operator Lila Thompson, stood outside the shuttered Warwick gate clutching her heat-scarred gloves. "My granddad poured here. My dad, too," she said, voice cracking over the hiss of a cooling crucible. "Now the jobs are there," she pointed north, where the tax was meant to sting. Trucks soon formed metallic caravans rolling south again, each trailer stacked with freshly cast Canadian slabs destined for Tennessee auto sheet mills. Tariffs still apply, but the math works. Cheaper hydro plus rebates offset the levy and leave Alcoa's ledger greener than before. Local leaders plead for federal relief, but Washington's reply is wrapped in litigation and midterm speeches. Meanwhile, Baie-Comeau workers toast a second boom in cafes that smell of espresso and molten flux. The glowing irony hangs in the PRAIRIE, night air. The duty designed to punish Canadian aluminum now bankrolls it, so who's really paying the furnace bill? If steel and aluminum feel distant, walk a Costco aisle and inspect the barcodes. Kirkland label, maple glazed salmon, peanut butter, even the humble 129 pickle jar now whisper a new origin, packaged north of the 49th. Executives call it regional, resilience. Translation: leapfrogging the 25% surcharges that Washington slapped on imported food ingredients, glass, and plastics. The workaround is elegantly simple. Shift private label processing to Canadian co-packers, move empty jars and raw fish through duty-free USMCA lanes. Finish everything under Ottawa's clean processing credit. Then truck the cases back south tariff-free. Shoppers never see the shuffle. The Costco price tags stay frozen, a corporate creed. The human ripple is less invisible. Jenna Ruiz, a tomato paste line supervisor in California's Central Valley, watched Kirkland orders vanish within a single fiscal quarter. Her plant trimmed. Shifts, then shuttered Saturdays, then suspended the Christmas bonus that paid her daughter's dental braces. Far north, Owen McLeod of Leamington, Ontario, once the tomato capital of Canada, just posted midnight shift openings with relocation assistance and a fresh-painted daycare beside the loading dock. "We're hiring faster than we can train," he laughs, stacking pallets bound for Fresno. The carbon footprint may zigzag, but the wage footprint crosses a border. COSTCO'S public filings frame the pivot as consumer protection, keeping inflation at bay for 120 million worldwide members. Internally, spreadsheets show another layer. Every Canadian dollar paid to labor is a dollar shielded from U.S. tariff exposure, a hedge against political whiplash. The hot dog combo still costs $1.50, celebrated as patriotic proof that value endures. Yet, behind the food court cheer, the supply chain now loops through warehouses bathed in red and white flags. When bargain culture buries the cost of displacement inside shrink wrap and club packs, can consumers still taste the difference between a discount and a disappearing town? A few hours up the 401, the roar of Ford's Oakville complex used to be familiar. Flex crossovers idling on test ramps, lunch bell chatter echoing under murals of Route 66. But when Washington's new 25% surcharge on Chinese-made battery modules hit this spring, Oakville's fate flipped from legacy outpost to strategic sanctuary. Detroit bean counters realized something the drone footage makes plain. To keep its 3-row electric SUV affordable and eligible for the hard-won North American EV tax credit, they had to bolt it together in Canada, not Kentucky. Ontario's $1.8 billion green manufacturing grant sealed the logic. So at 2 a.m. on a rainy April Sunday, rail cars packed with U.S. robotics slipped across the Niagara Whirlpool Bridge like contraband hope. Inside Oakville's gutted paint shop, a crane lifted Ford's first U.S.-designed battery line onto Canadian soil. By dawn, local pipe fitters were welding coolant loops, while Ohio engineers FaceTimed torque specs from hotel rooms back home. The ET, human contrast, could fill a double exposure. In Louisville, an assembly line supervisor taped a handwritten "See you in 2027" over a shuttered break room Pepsi machine. In Mississauga, an unemployed aerospace technician found a new badge that reads simply EV Future Crew. Ford's press team calls it a North American optimization, but internal memos show Oakville locked in as the launch site through the decade, long enough for kids of transplanted Michigan electricians to pick up the Canadian accent. Each SUV will glide back south tariff-free under USMCA, advertised as Built for America, while wearing a VIN that starts with 2, Ottawa's country code. And everyone will carry a hidden line item. The tariff Detroit hoped would fence Chinese inputs out has instead fenced thousands of paychecks in, on the wrong side of the frontier. How many flags can a single electric motor fly before consumers notice the anthem has changed key? Follow the salty wind east to New Brunswick, and you'll find a cavernous concrete hall once meant for regional jet wings. This year, the hangar doors reopened with a new banner: yellow and black Stanley Black & Decker. When tungsten carbide, tariffs spiked tool steel costs by a gut punch 40%. The world's biggest toolmaker dusted off an old promise: we build where we sell, so long as the math works. The math now pointed north. Moncton's lure is triple-layered: hydropower at half North Carolina's rates, provincial payroll rebates that refund every apprentice's first 24 months, and a loophole: tools assembled in Canada can re-enter the U.S. duty-free even if motor cores arrive from tariff-hit Asia. Inside the retrofitted line, cordless mower shells glide on repurposed aircraft jigs, while Cape Breton software coders tweak battery firmware between Tim Hortons runs. South Carolina press operator named Yolanda still flips the switch on her empty punch press each morning, so the bearings don't seize. She sends resumes north, but worries her grandkids won't trade sweet tea for snow. In Moncton, newcomer Malik Rahim, once laid off from Halifax shipyards, posts a selfie in a DeWalt apron, captioned "Snow Friday, Shutdown Friday." Local radio dubs the city Tool Town. Corporate slides tout regional resiliency, yet insiders whisper the hard calculus. Shifting just 18% of mower output across the border erases nearly every tariff hit and earns a Canadian Sanitairo clean tech credit worth $6 per drill driver. Accounts payable loves the spread. Brand marketing loves the story of energy-clean assembly lines. But the unanswered riddle echoes through quiet Carolinian workshops. Can patriotism survive? When a wrench in a hardware aisle is stamped from a factory your taxes pushed away? 5 reroutes, 5 fresh maple leaf stamps on what once read, "Made in USA." Each journey began as a defensive tariff line in a policy spreadsheet and ended as a convoy of forklifts headed north. Protectionism promised renaissance. Instead, it mapped an unintended underground railroad for capital. Silent, legal, and relentless. Tomorrow's spreadsheet could send another industry over the 49th parallel. Not with a bang, but the soft hum of a cross-border truck. If unpacking these hidden currents matters to you, tap like and subscribe, then tell us below. Which migration shocked you most? And do tariffs still feel like a shield? Or have they become a boomerang? Because the next corporate compass turn may already be pointing somewhere colder.